9 o'clock, and time for the Saturday morning Master Gardeners program. And we have a studio full here this morning. And here's your host, Julian Shelton.
Yeah, it's quite the full studio. We have a very special show for everybody this morning. We are joined, myself, fellow Master Gardener Charlene Barnes. We are joined here today with Jean Reck from Bird and Bee Farm, and also Master Naturalist Catherine Johnson. She's working on a project on the farm. So today we're going to talk to them, learn a little bit about poultry, bees, farming, pollinators. It's going to be a really interesting show. So I'd like to start out by welcoming Jean. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me out.
It's wonderful to have you. Good morning, Catherine.
Hi.
Charlene.
Good morning to you.
Awesome. So how is everybody this morning? It's cold today.
Oh, but it's all warming up.
Yeah, it is. It is. We actually just got back from your farm. We had a nice tour. It was actually, the plants are surprisingly holding up well for a freeze. I was surprised.
Yes, it's interesting to see what is making it out there. I mean, we do have this Monarch Waystation Butterfly Garden that the Master Naturalist have started helping us with the last few months. And it will continue to grow and thrive. But yeah, there's some plants out there that look fragile to begin with, like the purple prairie verbena and things,
Yeah.
but they are doing quite well even with this cold weather.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's looking better than my garden. I got a little too overconfident with with my willingness and motivation to cover plants before a freeze, so I'm suffering the consequences of that. Jean, can you tell us a little bit about the Bird and Bee Farm? What is it that y'all do out there? What is the Bird and Bee Farm?
Well, it's a couple of things. Years ago, I used to have a commercial poultry operation, and by accident more than anything, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to turn this into basically a started pullet operation. We have people who come from all over the state who have chickens in their backyard for fresh eggs, for enjoyment, for pest control in their backyard. We bring in anywhere between 200 and 400 baby chicks every 2 weeks.
I saw that. That was incredible.
And starting at 8 weeks and up to 5 months, we offer these up for sale, and people come and buy these. So we take that hard work of starting baby chicks out of the equation, and just help people be successful with their home backyard poultry operations.
That's awesome. You also gave me some honey that looks really good. Are you also doing work out there with bees?
Yes. At this time, we probably have about 40 active beehives on 2 sites, and also probably another 10 nucleus hives. Nucleus hives are sometimes called nuke hives. They're like starter hives. They only have 4 or 5 frames in them for the bees to start with.
Okay.
And these will offer up for sale in the spring, along with some others similar that I'll start, so that people can start their own beehives at home.
Okay. So when you sell like a nucleus hive, is that something where you're buying the bees, or are you buying the frames too? How does...
Well, again, you'll buy the bees that have a active queen bee with them, and usually there's 5 frames in it.
Okay.
So you'll have a couple of frames of brood.
Okay.
Which is the eggs for the honeybees,
Gotcha.
and probably a frame of pollen in there, and a frame which is the pollen is their protein source. That's their food.
Okay.
And then also a frame of honey in there, which is also their food.
Oh, okay. So that's what the different. That makes sense.
So bees will mix that honey along with pollen and make basically bee bread, and that's what they feed the young with.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that will give people a good start in starting a hive of bees.
Okay, that's interesting, and I want to get into that a little bit later about some of the basics, because I know I think that's growing in popularity, beekeeping. Is it?
It is.
Not? I've
It
noticed,
is.
yeah.
And it's, there are a lot of clubs around that you can join in and find experienced beekeepers to be mentors, which I highly recommend. And there's also even locally, the Brazos Valley Beekeepers will have a bee school in September.
Oh, really?
The Central
Okay.
Texas Beekeepers in Brenham, that's another great organization, will have a bee school in March.
Okay.
And somewhere in February, there's one coming up in Austin also. So anybody who's interested in
I'm gonna have to
learning
write those
about
down.
bees, I really suggest you go to bee school first.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
find out the ins and outs.
Before you just end up with a ton of bees.
Before you end up with a ton of bees and see what
Gotcha.
it all involves. And then, of course, belong to a club
Okay.
so you can find someone to mentor with.
Gotcha.
But
That makes sense.
But it's a great hobby for people who want to have their own pollinators there and have some fresh honey. And there's just nothing better than that honey that you can get from your own bees.
Okay. I got to ask, one thing that struck me when I toured your farm is, it is clean, it is professional looking. It looks like you've been doing this for a long time. What's your story? How did you end up here with your wife, Cindy? It sounds like an interesting story, to say the least.
Originally, I'm from this area.
Okay.
Grew up on a dairy farm across the road, and this was part of the dairy. My dad sold the dairy when I went to college.
Okay.
And when I returned, he was tired of being in retirement, and we built this poultry operation.
Okay.
But my real job had me leave after being in the poultry operation for about 19 years. So I was gone for 14, 15 years, and I returned back in 2012. We came back to take care of my mom, who was still alive at the time.
Gotcha.
And we just kind of accidentally got into this business, starting off with some silky chickens and a few guinea eggs, and hatching that out. And we just have slowly grown that over time.
That's incredible.
Over really about the last 3 years. About 5 years ago, we also brought in some real grand wild turkeys.
Gotcha.
And because we wanted those also on the farm. And now we're at the point where we actually do hatch out guinea fowl and real grands on the farm. And in the last year, we've had over 800 real grands leave the farm to go to other farms across the state for people who want that wildlife on their farms too.
Gotcha. And you also have a unique mission statement. I've noticed you're working closely with the master naturalists as well on some projects on your farm currently. Catherine, do you want to tell me a little bit about what the master naturalists are doing? How did y'all link up? What's the story there?
Well, we met Jean last year when we had a bee program actually in Rockdale for beekeepers, and so I met Jean and went out to their farm, and he mentioned about maybe starting a Monarch Waystation, and he had this huge area. He can tell you how big it is in front of the parking area. And so I looked at the big area and said, well, let's just go big and do it all, the little area and the large area.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it's called the Milam Wildscape Project, and it is a master naturalist project, and we started it back in March, and we had a mentor from Dallas come down. His name is Bob Meone, and he is the manager of a large land conservatory area up in near Dallas. And so it's a 3-year project, and even then it probably won't be completely finished, but we have a lot of donated items and plants that have been donated. Since March, we have been certified by Monarch Watch, and they also awarded us 200 milkweed, and we were able to get that.
Okay.
And the National Wildlife Federation has certified the garden as a wildscape, and we're going to be applying for a lot of other awards and
It's a beautiful
grants,
area.
and so we're working on that all the time, applying for other certifications. The garden started out, you've seen it, was absolutely blank. And so the recs have added the fencing and underground sprinkler systems, massive underground sprinkler systems, and a lot of a gazebo was just erected, but the garden itself is filled with mostly natives and perennials. We already have a moon moth garden started. We're working on a southwestern.
I'm really excited about them. I love night.
Yes, so the plants are all white and fragrant.
Okay.
And so we'll be able to go out there at night and look at the moths.
That'd be pretty.
And then
It's a shame you missed it, Charlene.
Well,
I'm really.
You gotta
I'm sad
come.
you
I'm gonna invite
missed
myself.
it.
I'm
Yeah. Okay.
So we have the southwest garden that I'll start working on now that it's cooler. That will have a lot of cactuses and
I have
succulents
some
and so forth.
cacti. Maybe that we should link
Any-
up.
anybody
Yeah,
can
'cause
bring
I'm big
plants.
into cacti.
We have a lot of smaller trees like vitexes and senatrees, and we're going to have sumacs and mostly natives and about 20-foot tall trees, because any big trees, and I research trees a lot, their roots would mess up our sprinkler system, whether they're deep ones or lateral ones would mess up the sprinkler system, and some of them have such shallow roots that don't mess up anything, but when a big storm comes, it'll fall over, and one of the big things in the garden is extreme low maintenance.
Yeah.
So we're going to have lots of grasses. We're going to have berry patches for the wildlife. It's a wildscape #1. The Monarch garden is part of that. But, so we were planting things for other wildlife. And so the category in our Master Naturalist program, it's called, the category is Nature Improvement in Public Areas. That's how we were able to get it approved for Master Naturalist to work there.
Okay.
And we're going to share the plants, seeds and plants that come up with the public. And the Master Naturalists volunteer there, and we host events.
It would be great to get the master gardeners involved as well.
Yes.
So I'm relatively a new master gardener. What is the coordination and communication between the master gardeners and the naturalists? Is there a lot of overlap there, or?
There's not a lot of overlap, but we have a master naturalist in our group, quite a few.
I know Larry,
and,
yeah, he's
and there's
also-
more than that, but there's quite a few more than that.
Okay.
And so we just, talk to each other,
Yeah, that would
contact
be-
each other.
That would
That's
be
easy.
great to get more involved in, because it sounds like an amazing project.
Yes, and so one of our recent events was the Milam Girl Scout event, Milam Girl Scout fall program on soil, and we had a Natural Resource Conservationist Service, which is part of the USDA. We had 2 of those down that gave a huge soil program. And then in the garden, actually, people were asking me when to come, when is the prettiest time, and really the prettiest time is really in the heat of the summer, kind of July, August, and September, believe it or not. And due to the sprinkler system with well water, and we had no shade, absolutely zero shade, and all the plants were absolutely stunning in when it was really, really hot.
Yeah.
Because of the water, the well water.
Yeah.
And so we're working on, we have a shade garden we'll start working on last. We have a garden room we're working on that will be, you can go in it when it's raining, and it will be covered in vines. We're going to map the garden so we know exactly what plants are where and how to take care of them. We're going to have signs up talking about, the different plants. And we are available to give tours anytime, pretty much during the whole year. And as I said, its main goal is to have it very maintenance-free. We're using really bright colors and some very unique plants, like such as I showed you some of the orange flamacanthus instead of the red, and pink vitex trees and different unique
A lot of
plants.
salvias too that I'm very interested in.
Tons of salvias, agastaches, and just hundreds of native plants. And
Right.
I know all of them. I have them written down, and I know where they are. And so we get some of our unique plants from out of state and some locally. And just one, I'm almost through talking about the wildscape, but 2 of the really neat natural deterrents to pests that I've discovered that works is the using flour to kill aphids on the milkweed, and it doesn't kill anything else, but it kills aphids on milkweeds. And then the fire ants with the fire ants, and there's been very few there, but if you get 1 scoop of 1 fire ant mound and put it on top of another fire ant mound, but it has to be in equal amounts, they kill each other. That works.
Interesting. I'm going to be using that a lot.
Also the guinea fowl do a pretty good job on the fire ants out there also.
Yes, I actually like it when the guineas and the chickens and everything get in there, because they kind of turn the earth up too and everything. Yeah.
Which I guess leads me to my next question, Gene. It seems. All right. I'm actually, when we get back, Gene, I'm going to ask you a little bit about, the most scope and mission of your project, because it sounds like it's more than just a farm that is simply for profit. I mean, you're working with the community, you're doing a lot ecologically. So after we get back in a few minutes, we're going to touch on that a little bit. You are listening to KRXT 98.5 Master Gardener Program. We'll be right back.
Anderle Lumber Company says have the yard you've always dreamed about. Stop by their location on the Temple Highway in Cameron and get your topsoil, potting soil, flower bed materials, your landscaping supplies, timbers and stones, wood and metal trellises, planting mixes, and picnic tables at Anderle Lumber Company in Cameron, where you can get all of your DIY project materials. The hottest, coolest time in Texas is now the hottest gift of the season with the 2020 Schlitterbahn New Braunfels Season Pass. Give the gift of unlimited sun and fun for an entire summer for the lowest price in years, just $89.99. Come enjoy everything the world's best water park has to offer, from wild water coasters to endless rivers to pint-sized water playgrounds. And as always, parking is free. Coolers are welcome. Hurry, this limited time offer ends January 6th. Get yours now at slitterbahn.com. And you're listening to the Master Gardeners here on 98.5 KRXT. It's 9:20, and we'll be back with Julian Shelton, your host today, right after these messages. Right now, 45 degrees. The Rockdale Country Club would like to invite you to become a member. They have all types of memberships at Rockdale Country Club. All are family memberships. They have one for residents under 65, full club privileges. Also, a resident senior citizen 65 and over, full club privileges. And they have a summer membership, May through September, a satellite membership for those who live 35 miles from Rockdale, and a business membership. Check with the folks at Rockdale Country Club. They'd like for you to be a member. Call 512-446-4013.
Morning. You are listening to the Master Gardener program on KRXT 98.5. This program is brought to you by the Anderle Lumber Company in Cameron. And we are here this morning with Gene Reck and Master Gardener Catherine Johnson and fellow Master Gardener Charlene Barnes. Gene, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the mission and scope of your farm, because to me, when I visited it was not, of course it's a business, but it also seems to kind of transcend that a little bit. You're working with the community, the Girl Scouts, the USDA, the Master Naturalist. What's your mission and what's your vision and mission statement, would you say?
Well, we have 100 acres there, and our goal is to turn this back into a native prairie habitat for both birds, bees, butterflies. We are of course on the Monarch migration path here in Milam County. And it was really interesting to see the number of monarchs that really stopped by this year, especially on their southward migration. And as Catherine was talking about, even right there in the heat of the summer in September and October this year, as everything was in full bloom, just a number of bumblebees and types of bumblebees, I got to admit, I have never seen before.
Wow.
That are out there, native bees. And we work with a great biologist out of Parks and Wildlife, who's actually a Giddings native, Tim Sigmund.
Okay.
And when Tim was out last, we were walking through the prairie, and again, the number of native bees that we're seeing on the plants out there were things that I've never seen before. So it's really, the environment is becoming much more diversified now with these native specimens. Hopefully, we've planted 9 native grasses and 30 native forbs or wildflowers with Parks and Wildlife in this Pastures for Upland Game Bird program.
Okay. Texas has the best native grasses. I just got to say, I love them.
Yeah, and as these bunch grasses grow, this is bobwhite habitat. So we hope to reintroduce bobwhite quail, and maybe this coming spring or the following spring, certainly. And it sure be nice to hear those bobwhite call in the morning.
I love the sound of bobwhite.
Yeah. And of course, we do have the native turkeys out there also.
I saw that was some of my favorite to see those.
Oh, they're big and beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, we do have the bee apiary, which is kind of the bees apiary came before the wild prairie. Actually, I was looking for a way to have nectar plants that would bloom all through the year. And that's actually when we discovered the Texas Parks and Wildlife Upland Game Bird program. And of course, then the benefits of that just continue to compound in what we hope to have. And then we also, what sustains this whole operation, because it is a sustainable farm, is the started pullet operation. So we have usually about 30 varieties of started pullets for people to have for their backyards. And it's just really great to see families come out with their young children, parents and grandparents who want their children to learn where their food comes from.
Gotcha.
And raise those things.
So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Have you always been ecologically minded? Has that always been a big focus for y'all?
Yes, it really has. It goes back to, I really view myself as more of a conservationist than not really an environmentalist. And this really kind of goes back to the 50s when my father first came here. And the way he came to a piece of property where the neighbors told him to his face that he wouldn't last 2 years.
Wow.
And when he sold his dairy herd, he had the 3rd highest producing herd in the state of Texas.
That's incredible.
So he won a lot of conservation awards.
Okay.
It's always kind of been
It's wonderful to see that,
our thing there. And so the other things is, in addition to the Girl Scouts, we love having them out. We hope to have other groups out. Would like to work with the FFA and 4-H. They do grass identification type contest. We hope that they will come out and do studies and practice out there on the farm. We have Master Naturalist who would like to put in some birding trails. So we hope to develop birding stations out there and birding trails.
That'll be wonderful.
So this is something that's be very open to the public.
That's wonderful to hear. That's absolutely wonderful to hear.
So my question is, you say open to the public. How, if I wanted to go and I wanted to bring a group out there, who would I talk to? How would I get in contact with you? And
well, you can certainly call Cindy, my wife, or myself. You can find us online. Our website is birdandbeefarm.com, and contact information is there. Also with Catherine Johnson, the Master Naturalist. Catherine is really working so wonderfully with the Girl Scouts and the other groups that come out there. And so we can certainly find a time and that's convenient for you and your group, and
Yes.
we'd love to have you out.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I've got to ask because it's very impressive. It couldn't have been easy. There have to have been some major challenges along the way, and just scaling. What were some of your challenges in this project so far? Have there been any?
Well, actually, it's just learning the business.
Yeah.
It's like so. This past week we brought in 400 baby chicks. The weather was not real conducive. These came from 4 different hatcheries across the country. We rely on the U.S. mail service to take care of the chicks and get them here. So,
Oh wow.
You always worry about those things.
Gotcha.
So that's always a challenge. In raising baby chicks is not as all that easy, which is why we try to give a starting pullet, an 8 week to 5 month old pullet for someone to have, so that they can have success with their backyard chicken. Learning the bee business is interesting also. In some ways, they're fairly forgiving of me when I'm not very smart, and then other times you just simply lose them and you're not sure why. So again, those finding your mentor or going to the bee schools and becoming part of a club is really what you want to do to have honeybees.
Gotcha. Which would you say is more difficult, poultry or bees? I mean,
they both have
birds and bees, right? Different bees.
They both have their challenges,
right?
And it's like I said, it's great to have your own honey, but you can also do things to support your own native bee population.
Okay.
So there's hundreds of native bees in Texas, and most of them are solitary bees. They really don't sting people, so you don't pay much attention to them.
Okay.
A great majority of them are ground nesting bees. Some will burrow into old holes in wood, like mason bees or leaf cutter bees.
Okay.
And these are really good bees to try to encourage to have like in your backyard garden, because they don't cover a very big area, but they're great pollinators. A mason bee will pollinate 10 times as much as a European honeybee will. So, and they don't fly very far. Now, your honeybee may fly 2 miles for a nectar source.
Okay.
So they're covering 8,000 acres.
I've always been curious about their range. Yeah.
So a bee can cover anywhere of 8,000 acres, pretty much.
That's
incredible. So they may just choose to go right past your garden to a horse mint patch a mile away.
I've noticed that all the beneficial insects just bypass my garden. I get the aphids and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but there's those natural bees like the squash bee and leaf cutter bees that are actually going to pollinate those native plants that you have even in the garden, like squash or pumpkins or things that are native to the U.S. to America.
Okay. Gotcha. And then I guess one of my questions is, I've always really admired and been sort of jealous of people. I love agriculture. I love farming. It seems like the dream, but on the same token, it also seems like a tremendous amount of work. What does a work day or work week look like for you? Just out of curiosity.
Well, typically we start out pretty early. Most days the poultry operation is open in the morning from like 9 to 1.
Okay.
We're open from 9 to 5 on Fridays and Saturdays. So we have that time that we are there and taking care of the chickens and things around the garden. It's usually in the afternoons, maybe once or twice a week, that we will take off and go to the apiary to check on the bees and see what their status is.
Gotcha.
So it's busy, but it's not overwhelming, and it's very, very rewarding for us.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
I would like to ask Catherine, as a wife and a naturalist and everything else you do, your days have to be busy. Tell me, like, when you get up in the morning, what your day is like. I mean, how was your schedule from Monday to Sunday? When you wake up in the morning and you brew the coffee, I mean, you go outside. I mean, tell me a little bit about your day, what you do in your day.
Okay, well, this morning I got up and I have 10 rescue dogs, first of all, and cats. So, at 6:37, they didn't want to go outside, but I made them leave the house. And so I take care of a lot of animals, my own yard. As much as I can, I go out to the wildscape because it is very peaceful out there at the wildscape at all times of the year. And, just do a lot of work.
A lot of work.
On my house, my yard, and help out at church. I have, do things at the church.
I know it's a little bit off the subject, but the rescue dogs?
Yes.
You do.
Well, I don't really go out looking for them.
Okay.
Some of them show up at our house, or we know some in need. We take them. I get them adopted. Last year, I had about 8 of them adopted to really good people, and so some of them I keep. Yeah, they're getting older.
Somebody wanted to get in contact with you for a rescue dog, they would call, or how would they do that?
They can call me, call me, 512-446-3885.
Trying to help out, trying to help you out.
They're all neutered, spayed, and in great shape. I have some great ones,
That's
right now.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. Speaking of pets, I guess, I know a chicken isn't a pet. If somebody wanted to, because I've always been interested simply from a pest management standpoint in having chickens. But for example, I'm on an acre, it's fenced with chain link, it doesn't have poultry fencing. What would be the bare minimum? How would I get chickens? What would be the steps that a normal gardener would need to take?
Well, you'd certainly want to build yourself a coop that would be of adequate space.
Okay. What does that usually look like per chicken, would you say?
Probably about 4 square foot per chicken.
Okay.
So, you can find some of the smaller coops at some of the farm supplies that usually house anywhere from 4 to 8 chickens.
Okay.
Most of the people will let them out during the day, and they'll peck around the yard, eat some grass, eat some bugs. So many people really, really love to just come home in the afternoon and sit there, maybe with a glass of wine, and watch your chickens peck.
I watch my neighbors. It is really interesting.
Yeah, we have 7 or 8 customers who are between, I'd say, 7 and 12 years old, who have their own egg business. And so,
wow.
Yeah. So people bring their kids out, and they want their kids or their grandkids to really know where their food comes from, and have experience taking care of something that provides for that. So it's kind of rewarding.
That's all. And in my very limited experience, I will say, I have noticed that keeping chickens is even becoming more popular in urban areas. That's something I've seen a lot of lately. Is that impacting your business at all, or is that?
Well, we're in a great spot here in Rockdale because we're about an hour away from College Station, the Waco, and the Austin metroplexes.
Okay.
And so in Austin, for instance, they can have up to 6 chickens in their backyard, and there's a lot of people in Austin who have.
Oh, wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
6 chickens in Austin.
What's interesting in Austin?
No, I mean, it's, I guess it makes sense. That's awesome. That really is.
And what's also kind of fun, too, I don't know if you're familiar with the Gracie Farms area in Austin. Well, the story is back in the 30s, a storm blew these guineas into this area.
Okay.
And so there's always guineas there. Well, Austin grew up around this area.
Right.
And so I guess it's probably 3 years ago, a fellow named John from that area wanted to reintroduce guineas. And so he came to us, got guinea fowl from us a couple of times. And so that Gracie Farms area, they have their own Gracie Farm Guinea Facebook page, and there's watching Guinea signs on there. And they came back again this year and picked up another 45 guineas to reintroduce to that Gracie Farms.
Incredible.
So there's guinea fowl running around right there in suburbia.
I really like that. It is nice to see it kind of come full circle. I don't want to say there's just something so unsustainable, the way we separate our urban, suburban, and rural areas. It's nice to see an integration, to see wildscapes, to see poultry in those kind of areas. That gives me a little bit of hope. Now, if I did get chickens, for example, would I poultry fence the whole acre, or would I create like a subsection for them, would you say?
Well, you can, you may want to build a run around your coop that's varmint proof. Unfortunately, chickens are kind of low on the food chain.
That's right, and we talked a little bit about predation. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, so, you do have to protect them from the raccoons and skunks and possums and different things that might be in your urban setting.
Right.
But pretty much they'll live in your backyard. You don't have to worry too much about a fence. If they fly over the neighbor's fence, the neighbor can shoo them back to you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in the very urban settings who have chickens.
Wow, that's really good to hear. What about, does the same thing exist with bees? Do people in a more urban setting keep bees, or because I know that's getting more popular as well?
That is something you probably have to be pretty careful about on bees. And also you just kind of need to be careful about where your bees might come from, or the queen.
I've heard of queens like getting trapped in vans and stuff, and hives following them for hundreds of miles or something just crazy like that.
Right. Unfortunately, here we are in Texas. All honeybees in Texas are somewhat Africanized. They have some Africanized genetics.
Okay.
Now, if myself, I will bring in queens from out of state that won't have the Africanized genetics in them, so they're much calmer. But if they swarm, they can still mate with Africanized bees and become a little more agitated.
Gotcha.
So in a real urban setting, you have to be very careful about, how calm your bees are.
Okay.
And so there again, that's another reason to go with some type of structure that will encourage those leaf cutter bees or mason bees.
I see.
To come to your property. That's one of those things you can keep dead wood around, dead trees, dead fall, because those bees will get up even under the bark and lay their eggs and have places for them. So deadfall is good, and of course some bare ground is actually good for those bees that want to burrow in or go into some old mouse hole or rat hole or something, or beetle holes to lay their eggs.
So making your garden more conducive to native bees.
Right. There's actually a website out there called pollinators.org.
Okay.
Would be a good place if you're interested in pollinators and increasing the pollinators. Yeah, pollinator.org is a good site to visit. Catherine, you may have some other sites that are...
Or pollinators?
Yes, or for xeriscaping.
Oh, well, there's just tons of them. You can go to Monarch Watch and even National Wildlife Federation. The pollinator.org is really great. And, to find out about pollinators and the list of plants that are the best to have, for...
Is that something they cover a lot in the Master Naturalist program? Pollinators and that sort of thing?
Yes. In fact, one of the Master Gardeners is a real expert on that, Larry Kochian.
Yes.
At our Earth Day, he always has big boards and information on the pollinators.
I did a show on hummingbirds with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's very knowledgeable about the pollinators, the bees, the bats, and the birds. I believe is his, three that he.
I did not
forget about the bats.
I was just going to say I forgot about the bats.
So important.
And I want to talk a little bit more about bees and honey when we get back. We're going to go ahead and take a break right now. You are listening to KRXT 98.5 Master Gardener Program, brought to you by Anderley Lumber Company in Cameron. And we will be right back after these messages.
KRXT FM Rockdale. Determination, got it from my dad.
got resilience from my mom.
I'd say cotton growing is in our genes.
There's an art to growing Texas cotton, and FiberMax Cottonseed brings the science with advanced genetics for premium fiber quality and high yield potential.
Most profitable crop I've had.
Made my folks proud.
Your art, our science. FiberMax. Learn how FiberMax varieties averaged $159 an acre more than the competition at fibermax.com. Grow smart with BASF. Always read and follow label directions.
Texas Mutual is on the job with Kim Fields.
I love when a parent is able to bring me a problem and I can provide a solution. You're there to be a champion for them.
Kim is a family services advocate for Child Care Associates, the largest child development nonprofit in North Texas. She works with families to make sure their children have what they need. In 2019, Texas Mutual's Workers' Comp Dividend Program sent $330 million to safe employers like Child Care Associates. To learn more, go to worksafetexas.com/Kim.
Let Grandma's Kitchen bake those sweets for your holiday meal. Order your pies, cakes, or kolaches. Also, she can make your cornbread dressing and all the sides for your holiday meal. All orders are freshly made to order. All products are homemade, just like your grandma would make them. Trish Morton is ready to take your order. All you have to do is give her a call at 512-430-2471. That's 430-2471. Or you can also look her up on her Facebook page at Grandma's Kitchen.
Anderley Lumber Company says have the yard you've always dreamed about. Stop by their location on the Temple Highway in Cameron and get your topsoil, potting soil, flower bed materials, your landscaping supplies, timbers and stones, wood and metal trellises, planting mixes, and picnic tables at Anderley Lumber Company in Cameron, where you can get all of your DIY project materials.
Good morning. You're listening to the Master Gardener radio program on KRXT 98.5, sponsored today by Anderley Lumber Company in Cameron, Texas. Today we are here with Gene Reck from Bird and Bees Farm and Catherine Johnson, Master Naturalist, and fellow Master Gardener Charlene Barnes. Now, Gene, I had one question about honey because this is something that's always interested me. The different plants and flowers that bees have access to impact flavor quite a bit. Just the overall composition of the honey can change dramatically from one region to the next. What is Central Texas honey like? What is unique about this area's honey?
Well, and the honey here can change from year to year depending on kind of what the pollen sources are, what the bees prefer that year. It may have a slightly different flavor, maybe a slightly different color. We call basically ours wildflower honey because it comes from a number of different flower sources.
Gotcha.
Probably the predominant source for us here in the Post Oak Savannah region is horse mint, also called bee balm. Makes a nice rich type honey. Now if you move over into the Blacklands over here, you might be able to get some cotton honey, and that's going to be almost a pure white looking honey.
Oh, really?
Or in some areas you can go down and you might get some mesquite or Wasatch honey, and it's going to be more of a golden yellow and have a kind of a little different flavor.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting that there's a professor here at Texas A&M who's a basically, I guess you call a forensic scientist, and you can take a sample of honey to him, and he will analyze it and the different pollen sources in there, and can actually tell you what flowers the bees had visited.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a forensic scientist.
Wow.
So,
We've all heard that honey is good for your allergies, correct?
Yes.
Is that true?
I've heard the same thing. I can't verify whether it is or isn't. But
you must get it from the area in which you live.
Yes. Because of the ponds.
You
That's
can't
really
use Peru honey here to help your...
Gotcha.
Well, I certainly encourage people to use local honey, and there's a number of beekeepers in this area that you can find honey from, including Bird and Bee Farm. So
I can't wait to try the honey that you gave me. I'm very excited.
Okay, you'll enjoy it, I promise you.
Very excited. So the Master Naturalist program is big on honey.
So what I wanted to ask is if you can tell me about the Master Naturalist, and if I wanted to be a naturalist, where would I go? Who would I see, and what would be my requirements as far as Master Naturalist? How does that work? And what do you do?
Well, we have classes every other year, and so this January we will be starting a new class, and it's actually going to take place in Cameron, I believe. We're going to be up there this next year, and you could go on our website. The information is going to come out in the newspaper quite a bit, and we'll have some brochures to hand out. But you can go to the website and call anybody you know, any master naturalist you know, and then there'll be a couple months of classes and some walkabouts, which one of them they want to do at the Bird and Bee Farm in the Wildscape. And you travel to different universities in different places like the wetlands in Waco, and then you graduate with, they have Texas Parks and Wildlife and various people teaching the classes, and then you graduate, and then you can start doing volunteer work in whatever interests you. And getting AT, that's called advanced training, where you just go and listen to people. You don't do actual work, but you go listen to people, like a Bluebird convention and events like that. And so just come and join us for sure. We need you.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
And this is the El Camino Real Master Naturalist is the group that's here.
Okay.
And so I didn't talk about it, a little more about our Monarch Waystation. It's about a 10,000 square foot garden. It's called a colossal garden is the size.
Categorized as colossal.
Colossal. But you can also be listed as a Monarch Waystation, and there's hundreds of them across the state, by starting a Monarch garden in your backyard. I think it's as small as maybe 100 or 200 square feet.
Yes, it can be pretty small.
It can be fairly small.
So a normal person with a backyard garden.
Definitely.
A normal person with a backyard garden can have one. So, we talk a lot about agriculture and the monoculture that's out there. Right. You just have one crop, and so it's not very beneficial to a wide range of pollinators. But we also do that in town also. Right. We have a monoculture of buildings, streets, and St. Augustine yards.
Exactly. It's very, very depressing.
It is. And so, why not start that Monarch garden in your own yard and actually be listed with Monarch Watch as a way station?
What are some plants, Catherine, that would be beneficial for monarchs and other native pollinators, would you say? What's your focus?
Well, of course, the monarchs have to have milkweed plants, and there's just a variety of milkweed plants, and several, specifically in Texas, because they lay their eggs on milkweed, only milkweed. And then when the eggs hatch into caterpillars, the caterpillars eat the milkweed.
Okay.
And then they form a little chrysalis, and when they turn into a butterfly, then they eat other things, nectar from a lot of other things. But you have to have milkweed for monarchs, that's for sure. And then just, a lot of common things that people have out there anyway, like Maximilian sunflowers and stuff that just grow natural. There's just tons of natural stuff that they like, to eat. Butterflies do, and hummingbirds for that matter. Just lots of natural things you have. Some that aren't native are zinnias. They love zinnias and asters, and there's just a huge list of native and non-native plants that are great nectar plants. Once passion flowers and swallowtails like pipe vines, which are really hard to find, but we've got some. And so you just have to go and get your list. There's tons of lists, and
would pollinators.org be a good resource for that sort of thing?
Yes, and Monarch Watch is great. Monarch Watch is really great. Joint venture. There's a Monarch joint venture. It's called.
Okay.
And then just the pollinators.org for hummingbirds and so forth. And then, you have to have water is overlooked a lot in gardens. You have to have actually tons of water sources, and butterflies like really shallow really shallow water with little rocks that
I did
they
not
can
know
sit
that.
on.
Okay.
And then they do something called muddling, where you make a little, like you take a little pie plate or something and you put some little gravel and mud in one section where it's kind of high, and then it's really shallow water, and they go and they just kind of muddle in the mud, and that's how they drink water. A lot of people don't know. They forget the water sources and then places for them to sit on but hide and get in out of the sun, actually, in the wind.
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing at the Wildscape too, is providing shelter and nesting places for different kinds of
So providing the
as
environment.
well. You can't just,
Gotcha. It's not simple.
You just
as
can't
putting
have
seeds out
something
there.
they eat. You got to do a bunch of other stuff to protect them and keep them there.
Right, and having this, we have a lot of customers come out to buy chickens, and they're seeing the Wildscape and the Monarch Garden, and I think that's going to increase interest in other people doing this.
Hopefully.
In addition to, we have the 100 acres that we're turning back to tallgrass prairie, and I have a neighbor even just right down the road, Gretchen and Dom DeFlorio. They have about 70 acres that they're also turning into tallgrass prairie.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so they just planted this past year, and they've got a beautiful start on their prairie, and they have some monarch gardens started around their house also.
I've seen it in the suburbs as well. HOAs are loosening regulations a little bit. You're seeing more complete biomes, I've noticed, which is good. I hate lawns. Anybody that's listened to me on the radio will know that is one of my biggest hatreds is, centipede, St. Augustine, all that sort of thing. But that's another story for another day. I do have one question, and I would be remiss, I guess, in talking about pollinators without asking a little bit about pesticides. Where the Master Naturalists, your farm, Gene, what is that? What does pesticides look like? It's all over the news. Pollinator populations are crumbling. I mean, what's the story there?
Well, the story on our farm now, with going back to the tallgrass prairie, is that I will never use herbicides or fertilizers on the farm again. So part of the program is with the Parks and Wildlife is that I cannot put cattle back on for 3 years.
Okay.
And after that, we'll have, not only would you call them grass-fed and grass-finished, but also grass-fed and grass-finished on Native Prairie. So this is we won't run a lot of cows, but enough for us and our families to have some very, very good clean beef, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, but anyway, there won't be any fertilizers used again or any herbicides on the farm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and there never has been much pesticide use.
Right. I've noticed that even I know gardeners especially, glyphosate's a big one that's been in the news. Apparently almost everything can be detrimental to pollinators at this point. Is that something, Catherine, that the Master Naturalists talk about at all? Alternatives to traditional pesticides and that sort of thing?
Oh, yes. Like we, try to use as much as possible just natural deterrents and so forth. And just on that subject, if you put cat hair in the mole little things that'll run them off, that's one good thing for moles.
Oh, that I did not know.
And gophers, But we try as much as natural. The gypsophate that you've talked about is, I've heard that if it dries, once it dries, like cattle and things can eat and stuff, but, we don't want to use it as much as possible. There's so many natural things. And then, if there's just like a few bugs around or ants, it's okay, just leave them. Because when you put stuff in to kill one thing, remember it goes in and kills everything else, your earthworms and all kind of stuff, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I kind of live with some fire ants now and so forth.
Yeah, years ago I had such a problem with grasshoppers that I had the holly, they would strip the leaves on the holly plants around the house. I mean, they were so thick.
They're brutal.
They were brutal.
So aggressive.
I stopped by McVoy Feed and that time when Mr. McVoy was still here in town, and he had 100 guinea keats, and I bought all 100 of them and brought them up and raised them and turned them loose, and boy, did they do a number on the grasshoppers.
Wow.
So, it gets you a good flock of guineas going out there. And
good watchdogs.
They're good watchdogs. They're good watchdogs, too. And the secret on having guineas is have too many to count. That way, if you lose one or two, you won't know.
You don't know. And then I guess one final question I have is, it's been such an inspiration, Gene, touring your farm, seeing your dream realized so beautifully. What advice would you have to somebody that wants to make a living in agriculture, that wants to start a farm? What advice would you have to somebody just starting that journey?
There's your typical agriculture that's out there. It is big business. You have to be very, very big these days, unfortunately. But there's a lot of specialty type things that you may be able to do out there. I mean, we're kind of a niche market with our operation and with our bees. And we're fortunate, to have the property to do it on. But there's people who have, I guess kind of you say truck farms, where they're selling their produce at farmers market and those type of things that they can make at least some additional income on.
Yeah.
Farming's a tough business.
Yeah,
it is.
That's what I've heard.
I always say if you want to make a small fortune in farming, start with a large fortune.
Oh no. This has just been wonderful. I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to visit your farm. It's obviously a work of passion, and it's obviously more than just a business for you, and it's really been wonderful to see that. And Catherine, I'm very excited about your garden in the area. Especially, I wanted to mention that there's going to be an interesting night pollinator area, a night blooming garden. That's a personal favorite of mine. So I'm really excited to visit more and to collaborate more with the Master Naturalist. Hopefully, the Master Gardeners can get in on this project.
Get together and get a tour.
Yeah.
And come on over.
We'll defect, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Leave the Master Gardeners, come over to the Naturalist, right? No, but it's been wonderful, and
I'm excited.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, Charlene, you need to go.
I'm happy to be here, and I will.
Cindy does a
come
better
by,
job
and
of
I'm looking
answering
forward
the phone
to
than I do.
coming out, taking the tour, seeing what you have, bringing people out from the suburbs, transporting them out to your place, and getting a tour. I'm really excited. I'm excited.
So thank you so much for joining us, Gene. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Julian.
And you have been listening to the Master Gardener program on 98.5 KRXT, sponsored by Anderley Lumber Company. And we'll be back soon.
KRXT FM, Rockdale.
TSN News. I'm John Mark Dempsey. Supporters of death row inmate Rodney Reed are relieved that he's been granted a reprieve by a Texas court of appeals. They believe new evidence raises serious doubts about his